Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I hope you've all had an okay week despite everything that's going on. That is some of what we're going to talk about within this video. Now, this is going to relate to Cardano, this video, but we're really going to be talking about the wider cryptocurrency market and a lot of what's taking place right now, because it's a bad day for markets, it's a bad day for geopolitics, it's also a bad day for the world as a whole, given what has unfolded over the past, what we've been leading into and what's really unfolded over the past 24 hours. We're going to be largely talking about this because you see markets across the board sell off. Now, one thing that we want to do on this channel, and when the markets are pulling off like they are, it's always good for myself and other content creators out there to get more aggressive with the content that we put out in regards to teaching and educating people about the crypto space, because there is so much going on, and right now value is just simply not being reflected within the price. There is a huge disconnect between price and value. And you can see this across the board. You have stocks out there, Barclays Bank, for example, that are absolutely, the floor is sort of falling out beneath them, given the sort of Russia-Ukraine situation. And this is just markets to markets, and you really need to understand that. So we are going to be bringing a lot of content out in regards to lots of the dApps that are being built on top of Cardano, lots of things taking place in the ecosystem, and really focus on that moving forward. Of course, we will keep you up to date on the markets. So we are going to touch on ADA, but it's important, absolutely important, to understand that markets right now are not reflecting value, in the sense that the price is just so disconnected with what's taking place. It's not moving off the fundamentals of an individual asset right now, and more the overall market sentiment, which is diabolical as people are anticipating risk, given the fact that Russia essentially have decided that they are going to invade Ukraine. It's in these kind of moments where everything kind of you get a little bit more clarity on things. Money isn't everything. It is important, and anybody that tells you otherwise has clearly never done without it, or with very little of it. But it isn't everything. There are things out there that's more valuable, and it's a sad state of affairs when you have individuals that are going to lose those things more valuable than money. Family, friends, etc., health. And that's the case probably for both Russians and Ukrainians in this situation. For political, I didn't think that we would get to this stage, given the fact that it's 2022, and you'd have thought humanity would have evolved enough to figure out a way to come to some kind of an agreement without bloodshed. But clearly that's not the case, and it is what it is, and we need to deal with it accordingly. So it's a terrible situation that's taking place. Markets, of course, are reacting to that. Not as badly as I perhaps thought they would. I'm going to make this statement, and some of you may not see it yet, but I think in the future you will. Crypto is actually holding up relatively well in comparison. For such a speculative, risky, or deemed risky asset, you'd expect a lot more, I think, of a drawdown than we've seen in relation to previous ones, given what's taken place. Actually not, remember we were lower than these prices in January. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't spill further as the sort of fallout of all this starts to grip, starts to take a hold. Because what you've got to understand is the world is very leveraged and tethered. We're kind of like dominoes. So when one falls, it brings quite a few down with them. And there's a fallout of this. For example, they're talking about backing out of taking natural resources like oil and gas from Russia. We already have a situation where, certainly in the UK, America, and a number of other places, gas prices, oil prices are going through the roof. So this sort of restricts it even more. So there's an economic fallout of everything. We saw a huge spike up for oil today. The dollar did very well on the back of all this, as we see people looking for safety. Also, gold did well. This is what I mean by everything is tethered. And you're seeing a lot of things sell off right now. You saw the S&P sell off, which was already in a downtrend based on this sort of anticipation of this. But one thing that you've got to remember is there's a lot of, when I went to the petrol station today, I couldn't even get on the lot. It took me about 5 minutes to even get to a pump. If people are reacting like that in regards to getting petrol, and there's that kind of fear involved in them, that's going to be echoed through to markets. And markets often overreact consistently. And I think there is a little bit of that taking place right now. Now, what's going to be interesting is what now takes place. Do we recover from this? Eventually we will. You can see throughout, certainly the likes of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, you've got geopolitical events all over it. This was 2008. This, of course, up here was when they decided that they were going to start tinkering around with interest rates and upping them. You had this sell-off, which caused them not to do that. We've got obviously 2020 over here. And today we've got the sort of Russia-Ukraine situation. We do typically, using the Dow as an example, but this really goes for wider markets, recover eventually from these catastrophic events and go onto higher ground. And there's a lot of sort of, you've got to remember these things are valued in opposition to the pound, the dollar, fiat systems, which are constantly deflating and so on and so forth. So we will recover, but it's when. And nobody really has the answers for that. Nobody can preempt the likes of world leaders and, sort of geopolitical events that may or may not unfold. So I'm going to be sitting through this. I'm still a happy hodler in the same way that I was a happy hodler throughout this, and it served me very well today. Certainly for the likes of Bitcoin and many altcoins out there. But it is a pretty sad day, and we're yet to see what the real sort of economic fallout of all this is. We're already starting to see it, but we will see. It's interesting because we've also got this kind of macroeconomic landscape of the Federal Reserve talking about upping interest rates. Can they really do that? Can they really implement those interest rates, given the fallout that will have with the economy? Or historically has had, it's typically led to a slowing down of the economy when we've already got the kind of level of uncertainty and downturn that we're already seeing. Are they really going to throw petrol on that fire? We're yet to see. I will be hodling through this. I ultimately am a huge believer in crypto. I am all in crypto, and you get turbulent times within the crypto space. I kind of feel like being a part of 2017, where we saw this amazing run, and then 2018, 2019 was one of the biggest blessings that I could have received in terms of an experience, because you've got to remember crypto is extremely volatile and it acts very volatile, and people can't handle that. I mean, if you think about the fact that from March 2020 onwards, even Bitcoin was up 1,600%. In the grand scheme of things, this is somewhat relative of a pullback, just like this one was over here. And I'd actually argue that crypto has held up relatively well, given everything that's happening right now. We didn't really have any of these kind of political tensions within 2017, and you saw this kind of sell-off. Crypto's done very well, given everything that's taking place. And ultimately, in my opinion, it's going to recover. It's just when and how. We're just taking a different route to get to the same ultimate destination. Crypto's on the road to mass adoption. We're seeing that daily. And the price just simply isn't reflecting that. And what's getting reflected in the price right now is really what's taking place geopolitically, which is very sad. It's a very sad state of affairs. There's no way to be anything other than sympathetic to all this. It almost kind of doesn't feel right talking about the markets, given the fact that, like I say, there's things far more valuable than markets, than money being put on the line here for some people. But we have to act accordingly. Doesn't mean we're not sympathetic. We are very sympathetic, and my support and thought goes out to the individuals that are going to get affected from this. So that is largely really all I have. There's not really much more that can be said on days like this. We've got lots of plans for this channel. We really want to get DeFi is something that's been, it's nowhere near. We talk about crypto not being anywhere near its potential. Something like DeFi also isn't. And there's lots of DeFi that we could show you how to use and sort of educate people on that already exists. That's something we really want to do on the channel. We want to start covering a lot more individual projects and really kind of building everyone's experience up. And it's a great time when the price is doing this, when the price is kind of down and slumpy, to educate people, because it's that education that will give you the kind of faith that you need to prosper within the crypto space. You have to be rooted like a tree so that every time there's a gust of wind, you don't get blown over. And if you really understand what's trying to be achieved with crypto, you won't really, yes, nobody wants to watch their portfolio sell off, including myself. I'm not in the habit of timing markets. You will get it wrong more times than you get it right. I am 100% sure of that. And even traders, if you look at professional traders, I know of quite a few of them, they get a lot of their trades wrong, but what saves them is the management. And they'll actually often, some of them will get a lot more trades wrong than they get right, but the management of those trades will save them. And the winners that they get really are winners. So it's certainly interesting. We will keep you up to date daily, even though we are going to certainly start drilling into more. Nobody wants to really hear about the doom and gloom price action, certainly given what's happening. But we will definitely keep you up to date on everything, because I still have very high hopes for my investments within the crypto space. I don't think that is irrational, in the same way that in 2018, 19, I also had those high hopes. And if you really follow what's taking place from a news frontier, from a partnership frontier, from an adoption frontier for crypto, it's a very bright picture that we have. So we'll see. Some things that I'm looking out for, of course, your traditional financial markets, things like the NASDAQ and so on and so forth, seeing how they react. Remember, absolutely remember this, markets right now have had a shock and people are acting very fearfully in accordance to that. You know, there's a lot of people almost overreact to these situations. Yes, a reaction is definitely needed. But certainly from a market point of view, markets are very dramatic and they'll often sell off more than, you know, the fear really grips people. Markets are driven by human beings. Human beings are emotional. And that's why we have a lot of the cycles that we have, because ultimately human beings drive these markets to the up and the downside. So that's really all I'm going to say on this video, guys. Ultimately, hang in there. I'm going to be hodling through this. I'm going to be accumulating throughout this time period, started from today, or I'll accumulate every week, but certainly a little bit of dry powder that I had went in today, it will go in tomorrow if we go lower, and so on and so forth, because ultimately I think we'll recover, just like we've recovered from every single other economic kind of situation that we've largely had. You can look at the likes of the Dow and so on for that, to see how those economic activities or the geopolitical activities affected markets. They usually sell off, but they ultimately always recover, and that's what I'm expecting with this one, ladies and gentlemen. Who knows exactly how long it's going to be till that recovery takes place, which largely is anybody's guess, but it will happen. All I have for you in this one, guys, I'm going to love and leave you in on that one, and I will see you all within the next YouTube video. Thank you very much for watching, guys.